November 29, 1970. Deep in Norway's icy wilderness, nestled within the mountains near Bergen, lies a valley with a chilling nickname, Isdalen, a Valley of Death. For centuries, this secluded gorge had been shrouded in fear. Local legends spoke of ghostly apparitions wandering the mist, and in recent years, hikers had fallen to their deaths along its treacherous slopes. But on this cold winter morning, the valley would reveal something far more horrifying than folklore. Two young girls, out on a hike with their father, stumbled upon a discovery that would terrify the entire nation. Among the rocks, half hidden in the snow, lay the charred remains of a woman. Her body was still, her skin blackened by fire, her features unrecognizable. What happened here? Who was she? And why, after decades of investigation, do we still not know her name? The hikers first noticed the acrid scent before they saw the body. A faint, nauseating stench of something burned. Following the smell, their eyes widened in horror. Lying between jagged rocks was the corpse of a woman. She had been badly burned, her arms twisted unnaturally, her body positioned as though she had collapsed mid-struggle. Close by, half-melted objects glistened in the frost. Personal belongings, scorched and scattered, as if someone had tried to erase her identity. The father immediately led his daughters away and alerted the police. Soon, officers would descend on the site, unaware that this case would become one of the most haunting unsolved mysteries in European history. When investigators arrived, they were met with a scene both puzzling and disturbing. The woman had suffered extensive burns to the front of her body, yet the surrounding foliage was untouched by fire. Around her lay several objects: plastic bottles containing traces of alcohol, a broken umbrella, fragments of clothing, and, most bizarrely, prescription sleeping pills. Her fingerprints had been deliberately sanded down. The labels had been removed from every single item. Someone wanted her identity erased. The investigators quickly realized this was no ordinary death. This was a carefully constructed enigma. The news spread quickly across Bergen. A burned body found in the Valley of Death. Was it an accident, a suicide, or something far darker? The locals whispered of strange lights in the valley at night, of shadowy figures seen hiking where no trail existed. Rumors began to spread that the woman was a spy, an assassin, or perhaps a victim of some secret ritual. But among all the whispers, one fact was certain. Whoever she was, someone had gone to great lengths to ensure she remained a mystery. Back at the police station, detectives began piecing together the woman's belongings. In her luggage, discovered at Bergen railway station, they found wigs, multiple pairs of glasses with no prescription, and a variety of clothing, all with labels carefully cut away. Even more chilling, they uncovered a notebook filled with strange codes, a series of letters and numbers that seemed to mark travel dates and destinations across Europe. This was no ordinary woman. She had traveled under at least 8 different identities. Who was she hiding from? Or, more disturbingly, who was she working for? Among the burned woman's belongings, one item stood out: a small, battered notebook filled with handwritten codes. Lines of letters and numbers scribbled in a sequence that meant nothing at first glance, but investigators soon realized it was a travel log. Each code corresponded to train stations, hotels, and dates of movement across Europe. From Paris to Hamburg, from Oslo to Geneva, she had been everywhere. But under each journey, she had left no real trace of herself, no true name, no origin, no past. To the police, it looked like the careful work of someone living a double life.
As investigators dug deeper, more unsettling details emerged. Witnesses came forward describing a strange woman who had checked into hotels across Norway. Sometimes she appeared with dark hair, sometimes blonde. She wore elegant dresses one day, casual coats the next. But one thing remained constant. She always insisted on paying in cash and always carried multiple passports, all under different names. The staff remembered her demeanor, polite but distant. She rarely spoke, except to order food or ask for directions. Some recalled her sitting alone for hours, staring out windows as though waiting for someone who never arrived. Whoever she was, she lived behind masks, both literal and metaphorical.
Tracing her steps, detectives discovered that the Isdal woman spent her final nights at Hotel Hordehamen in Bergen. Witnesses recalled her as nervous, pacing the hallways and frequently changing outfits. One waiter claimed she seemed as though she was expecting someone or hiding from someone. On her last known day alive, she checked out of her hotel carrying 2 suitcases. Hours later, she was found dead in the valley. The suitcases were later recovered, but every single identifying item inside them had been meticulously stripped of labels or names.
Several witnesses reported seeing the woman in Bergen before her death. A local shopkeeper described her buying a pair of rubber boots, speaking with a faint foreign accent he could not place. Another remembered her dining alone, eating quickly as though she was short on time. Perhaps most disturbing was the account of a man who claimed he saw her walking through town with 2 unidentified men in dark coats. Was she meeting handlers, being followed, or was she already marked for death?
The year was 1970. Europe was divided by the Cold War. Norway, though small, was strategically important, a NATO member close to the Soviet Union, with secret military installations along its coast. To investigators, the evidence began pointing in one direction: espionage. The wigs, the disguises, the multiple identities, the coded notebook, all were trademarks of a spy. Some believed she was working as an intelligence agent, possibly caught between Western and Eastern powers. Others feared she had been eliminated after completing her mission. The gruesome burning of her body seemed less like suicide and more like a message.
The body of the Isdal woman was transported to the morgue, where forensic experts began their grim task. The smell of burned flesh lingered in the sterile room as pathologists examined her remains. Despite the severe burns, they noted something disturbing. She had been alive when the fire started. Her lungs contained traces of soot, proof she had inhaled smoke before death. Even more unsettling, the fire had not been hot enough to destroy her entire body. It looked deliberate, controlled. Someone wanted to burn her, but not to the point of complete destruction.
The autopsy revealed yet another strange detail. Inside her stomach, they found more than 50 sleeping pills, a massive dose, enough to cause unconsciousness or death. Yet she hadn't simply passed away peacefully. Instead, she had burned alive. Some investigators speculated suicide, suggesting she swallowed the pills before setting herself on fire. But skeptics argued, how could someone in such a weakened state manage to arrange such a controlled burning? The contradictions piled higher with each discovery. Another curious detail emerged. On her charred body, she wore little jewelry, a few rings, a watch, but strangely they were placed in a way that suggested intention. Experts noted that the jewelry had been carefully arranged beside her body, almost as though staged. Was this symbolic, or a final attempt to erase fingerprints and traces of ownership? Investigators couldn't be certain, but the arrangement of her belongings felt deliberate, the work of someone who wanted to send a message or confuse the scene.
The most haunting question of all, was she alone when she died? Investigators concluded that it was unlikely. The placement of her body, the fire, the pills, it was too precise, too deliberate. Witnesses in Bergen reported seeing her with unidentified men days before. Others claim they saw her traveling with companions on trains. The chilling possibility arose that whoever she was with may have followed her into the valley. And when she could no longer serve her purpose, they made sure she would never speak again.
Weeks passed, but the woman's identity remained a blank page. Her fingerprints led nowhere. They'd been sanded down. Her dental records didn't match any database. No missing person reports fit her description. To the police, it was as if she had never existed. Each clue they found, the wigs, the codes, the disguises, only deepened the mystery. The case was no longer just about a dead woman. It was about something larger, an invisible world of secrets lurking behind the everyday lives of ordinary people. A world where spies, lies, and death intertwined.
As detectives combed through the coded notebook, they began mapping the woman's movements across Europe. Each set of letters and numbers corresponded to trains, ferries, and hotels. From Milan to Paris, from Oslo to Bergen, the Isdal woman had traveled extensively in the months before her death. She often checked in under false names, always removing clothing labels, always paying in cash. She moved like a shadow, crossing borders as though she belonged nowhere and everywhere at once. Several of her coded entries matched travel near Norway's military test ranges. Bergen was close to secret NATO installations where experimental missile systems were being developed. Witnesses remembered seeing her observing test sites, sometimes with binoculars, sometimes blending into tourist groups. This detail transformed the investigation. She was no longer just a nameless drifter. She was possibly gathering intelligence.
By now, whispers of espionage were impossible to ignore. The Cold War had made Europe a chessboard for spies. Some believed she was a Soviet operative monitoring NATO activities. Others suggested she was working for Western intelligence, eliminated when her mission ended. The wigs, the disguises, the multiple passports, the codes, they all matched the toolkit of a spy. But with no official acknowledgement, the truth was buried under speculation and fear.
The Norwegian police worked tirelessly, but the deeper they dug, the more resistance they faced. Requests for information from international agencies were met with silence or vague denials. Some files from the case disappeared. Witnesses who had spoken with her were reluctant to talk further. It was as if an invisible hand was pushing the case into obscurity. Journalists who investigated were warned to tread carefully. The truth seemed dangerous, not only for the investigators, but perhaps for the entire country.
For the people of Bergen, the mystery grew more chilling with each passing day. Who was this woman who wandered their city in disguises? Who followed her into the Valley of Death? And why did her life end in fire and silence? Norway had seen many tragedies before, but this was different. This was a puzzle that suggested hidden powers, unseen battles, and a life erased with surgical precision. To this day, the case of the Isdal woman feels less like a crime and more like a ghost story written in the language of espionage.
After months of fruitless investigation, the authorities had no choice but to lay the Isdal woman to rest. In February 1971, she was buried in Bergen in a simple grave, attended only by police officers and journalists. Her coffin was lined with zinc in case her body would ever need to be exhumed. The grave was marked with no name, only a number. A woman who had traveled through Europe with disguises and secrets, now forgotten in silence. For decades, the case of the Isdal woman remained unsolved. Police files gathered dust, and the story slipped into urban legend. Yet it haunted those who had worked the case. Detectives admitted they never stopped wondering who she was. Each theory – suicide, spy, fugitive – left more questions than answers. In time, the Valley of Death itself seemed cursed by her memory, hikers whispering of strange feelings when passing the place where her burned body was found. In the 2000s, forensic science took a new look at the mystery. Isotope analysis of her teeth suggested she was not Norwegian at all, but may have been from Central Europe, perhaps Germany or France. Further research hinted she grew up in multiple regions, moving frequently just like a child of diplomats or spies. Her handwriting and accent were studied, pointing again to origins outside Norway. Yet even with modern science, her identity remained a ghost. The puzzle pieces never quite fit together. Some investigators believed she was killed because she knew too much. Others believed she chose to vanish in fire, leaving the world guessing. But the truth is colder, stranger, and perhaps unreachable. More than 50 years later, the Isdal woman remains unidentified. Her story stands as one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. A woman without a name, a life without a past, a death without closure.
Even today, visitors to her grave in Bergen leave flowers and notes acknowledging the nameless woman who lived and died in secrets. She is no longer just a case file or a forensic puzzle. She is a reminder of the unseen battles waged in the shadows of history. The Isdal woman's story remains unsolved, a haunting echo of the Cold War, forever frozen in time. And perhaps that is exactly how it was meant to be.